All right, you can drink as much coffee as you want.
Yeah, I generally do.
That's a good thing. I believe I can read and cherry pick any of the studies that I want that tell me that I can drink as much coffee as I like.
That's how science works.
Yeah.
It's what we do.
That's how we do.
That's how it
Just cherry
works.
pick. Just look at the studies that we believe in, and that's what we're going with.
Well, they're the right ones, obviously.
Oh man. Oh, so let's go ahead. I want to start it off with your post during. You were just saying you had some of the strictest quarantines, but your post of reading the little passages from the books and stuff like that were super inspirational. Like your tone, you're
Thank you.
hilarious for one. Like it just brought a little smile to my face every morning when I get up and I realize like, oh, that's awesome. I hope he doesn't stop these. Then it ended and I was like, just like a great TV show, he ends it at its peak.
I really enjoyed it. Like it was fun, but like it's not the case of like a lot of social medias where like, you've got to post every day at this time and have this lighting and do that. It's just like I would post it because I'd read something or came across something that I really liked and thought, yeah, I'm going to share that. That's really good. And then when I ran out of stuff for a while, I'm like, I don't want to just post stuff because you've got to post every day. It's like, if I've got something valuable to say, I'll say it. And if I don't, I'll shut up. So I kind of hit that point where I just got really busy with a bunch of other stuff and I wasn't getting as much time to read and listen to podcasts and expose myself to a lot of other bits and pieces, which is where I get my inspiration from. So all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm a little dry on the ideas. I'm just going to stop and take a break for a while. I'd hoped it'd only be a couple of weeks. Turned out to be like a month or 2 months. But now that I've got a bit more time, I'm now getting back into listening to some different podcasts. I'm back into reading a lot more stuff, and now the ideas are starting to flow again. So I'm coming back. It'll come back, I promise. Because I enjoyed it, and it's funny you put it out there, and like I'd hear from you and a couple of other people, and my mum would like it and stuff like that. And you heard nothing else. And then I missed a couple of days and I got a ton of messages, people going, bro, where have you gone? What are you doing? I was waiting for it. And you're like, oh, okay, people were listening and enjoying it. So you kind of forget that it is actually getting some traction and people are finding some value in it. So it'll be good. It's coming back. It'll be good to get back into kind of the swing of things again.
Well, in a place like over there, like you said, you're in Victoria, right? So
Yep.
in a place like that where the lockdowns are like more heavy and strict and people are on edge because to have your business just be closed involuntarily and
Mm.
your lifeline, whether your job or your business, it's a stressor like no other. And so did those sort of things, did you hear from people like over there that are in that situation saying, hey, this is really nice to hear every single morning?
Yeah, I think it just gave people, it helped get some perspective on different things. Like sometimes it just, and like I said to you earlier, like I don't have a lot to complain about. We're in Victoria, but we're in a regional part of Victoria. So Melbourne's like the capital city here of the state. You got 3+ million people there, but we're 3 hours out of that. So whilst Melbourne Metro was in a really hard lockdown when we got the second wave come through, we were in a slightly lower level of lockdown. So we didn't really have a lot to complain about. But I think for people stuck in there, I felt it was valuable to give people some things that just changed their perspective a little, or let them have a little bit of mental escapism, or just something that took them out of their own world. Because it's really easy to just get locked down in your own four walls and like everything's coming in. So if I could give them something that for a couple of minutes a day, like I tried to keep it to like 90 seconds, just you can do 90 seconds of just, hey, that'll give me something to think about today or change my perspective on something, just to kind of stretch the mental landscape a little bit. Because for a lot of people, as you said, like when your business is shut and you got nothing to do and that's your livelihood, like there's some tough times. That was hard. I mean, I look at it now and go, I'm glad that there seemed to be some value to it. We didn't do it, have a lockdown, come out and go, hey, we're still exactly where we were before. It's like we did the hard yards, we had the lockdown, and like we haven't had a case for like 50 days. Like it's been fantastic. Like, things getting back to normal. People do whatever they want, pretty much go wherever they want. Like masks, it'd be like, some businesses require them, but generally you don't have to worry about it. So at least I feel like there was some value. The pain was worth it to get us to the point where we feel like, hey, we're in a good position now, or a better position than what we were. But yeah, it's been interesting. it's been interesting.
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, for people who didn't have all the land and stuff like that, could people go outside? Like, can they go outside and
Yeah.
like run around and stuff?
Yeah, they were limited. Like when it was like I think so they call stage 4 lockdown for us here was a case of going, you had an hour a day of exercise and you could go outside. You had to be within like 5 kilometers of your home. But socially, like there was basically nil. There was your house and that was it. And, you could go out to get your groceries, do your essential business, that kind of stuff. But otherwise it was just, dude, stay home. Just chill out and we're going to get through this. The original plan was 6 weeks. I think it ended up being like 10 or 12 weeks. So for people who didn't have a large social network, like, if you didn't have family, if you're living on your own, that kind of stuff, it would have been really rough. If you didn't have that space, if you're in an apartment building or something like that, yeah, you can get out and do your hour of whatever and do your groceries. And that was about it. So, I mean, I said to you, we're outside of that. We've got some land, so it was kind of a different experience for us, but we're not the majority. So I kind of had to keep that in mind.
And so and I imagine you're also not the majority when it comes to like what you've done too. Like the Artic 6633, you're by yourself for a long period of time, you're all by yourself,
Yeah.
like really all by yourself. You don't have any contact with anybody.
No, it's really weird. Like if you, in my business days, like doing training and courses and all that, you do like, psychological evaluations and stuff and all those Myers-Briggs and that kind of stuff. And based on that, I'm an extrovert and, but I'm very comfortable as an introverted person. Like I get energy from extroverted activities, but I'm generally most comfortable when I'm introverted. I'm quite happy on my own. It doesn't worry me. My physical training is generally on my own and a lot of my athletic endeavors are on my own. And I quite enjoy that. So it doesn't trouble me. So, I got a giggle out of that meme that introverts are going like 2020, this is like the best year ever. Like I don't have to talk to anyone and I don't have to go anywhere, I can just hide, So, but yeah, I guess, for some people, their mindset and their social structure was going to be a little bit more resilient to surviving this year than others. And that's not a criticism. That's just some people happen to be lucky and they're going, hey, I'm kind of okay in this environment where others weren't. And that was just, I think it was just luck of the draw.
Yeah. I mean, well, I'm kind of the same as you. I'm perfect. I love being around people, talking to people. I have this podcast. Obviously, I love talking to people. But at the same time, I almost find the intrigue in getting lost, like in certain things and being by myself and not having anybody around and being in my own head. Like that's also equally as fun. Like I can be okay in either situation. Like I definitely want to come back to seeing people though. Like I want to come back to seeing people and talking to people, but I'm okay. I don't panic or it doesn't affect me the same way as it does other people. But I think this year has been like a mind open for, I said it a lot, is that it's kind of like it's an eye opener towards a lot of things. Like what we just talked about here with being comfortable in alone spaces, like by yourself and understand, like, because that's tough. I mean, we're social beings, so we need to be around people. But then also the health and fitness part of it has been like a crazy eye opener, especially the way this thing attacks people who are out of shape. Like it's not that it doesn't affect people in shape, but you have a far greater chance of it being like minor, when you're in shape.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this has been, I don't know whether this is the right term, it's been a bit of a gut check for a lot of people to go, for some people, the idea of being alone in your own head is horrifying. And yet I think there's a lot of value in spending some time and getting comfortable just up here, with your own crazy roommate. You've got to get some time and get some control and be comfortable with that. And that is a really powerful tool to have, to be able to go, if you have to sit down for 10 minutes and not say anything and be totally alone, can you do that? And for a lot of people, that's just completely, I cannot do that. Like they just can't wrap their brain around it. Yet it's a skill. And for other people to go, and I've talked about this in blogs and, ad nauseum all the time before. Like if you don't treat yourself well in terms of your mental and physical health, sooner or later, there comes a bill to pay. And it's generally not at a time of your choosing. You don't get to negotiate it. You don't get to, can I afterpay it? Like, or whatever, can I, lay by it? It's like, nah, due now. And that turned out to be a big problem. And hopefully, a bit of an amber light for people to go, dude, I need to get some things sorted out, because next year might be cruisy, or it might not, or it might be worse. We don't know. So, you got the warning. How about we start tackling a few things?
That's my favorite thing to see. When people post, I can't wait for 2021. I was like, what does that number do? Like, that date doesn't mean anything, does it?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I don't actually, I was going to repost a blog I wrote kind of this time last year to go like January 1, like New Year's Day. Like, there's like a million different calendars in the world, depending on what religion and country you're in, and they all have a different New Year's Day. It's just a date. Like, all these people going, oh, I can't wait for 2020 to be over. Dude, the world doesn't care that it's January 1. Like, COVID doesn't care. Your bills don't care. Your health doesn't care. If you were unhealthy that yesterday, you're still unhealthy now. And if you got bills to pay yesterday, you still got to pay them now. And if you're dealing with stuff yesterday, you're still dealing with it now. So skip the whole, we're going to wait till New Year's and I'm going to have a resolution and do it. No, dude, just get on with what's got to get done, because it's not going to change because the calendar flips over a page. It's going to change because you change it. And that's the only way that's going to happen.
I mean, it's absolutely, like, I think the same exact way. And probably one of the things that opened my eyes the most was, and it's my favorite book, is Viktor Frankl's A Man's Search for Meaning. That book, like, if you look at every situation, like, I know nothing compares to what he was in, but if you put yourself in that mindset of, what can I do to make my situation better in every single situation? Like, what am I doing that causes myself more pain or grief or whatever? It makes things you see things in a different perspective, and it also keeps you looking for ways to improve your situation all the time. Like, what can I do? What can I do?
Yeah.
Like, and it makes you happier. Like, it makes you comfortable in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people, because like you and I talk about this a lot, and there's plenty of people who talk about, doing those hard things and all that kind of stuff. But it's important for people to remember that it is hard. Like, it's not easy. So if you say, oh, I'm going to really focus on things that are roadblocks for me mentally or emotionally or physically or whatever, and you struggle with it, it just makes you normal. That's okay. Like, it's okay to go, this is really damn hard to figure out, why I'm unhappy or why I'm not progressing here or whatever. And you might have to come up with some hard truths about, hey, turns out I'm not progressing because I'm actually shit at that. And maybe I should stop doing it and do something else or whatever it is. So I think and I have the same thing. Like, it's not like, oh, I'm an internet guru and it's perfect for me. It's like, no, it's hard work for everybody, and it's always hard work, and you've got to do it, but it allows you to move forward. So I think that's important for people to go, yeah, here's what you should do, but it's going to be hard, and that's okay. That just makes you normal. You just got to keep kicking. That's all right,
Yeah, I mean, explaining it, you can explain that it's normal all day long, and they'll still look at it from the outside and be like, it's not. And fitness is the same way, or anything that you do. People will look at it like, I can't be as good as that, so I might as well not even start. Like, I can't go into the gym and be a bodybuilder, so I might as well not get on the machine. Or what? Accountability is a weird thing with people. They don't want to ever look at themselves like, no, I'm in this shape because I did it to myself, and I've got to get myself out of it.
Yep. Yeah. And it can be liberating too. If you kind of accept that, all of a sudden you're like, I don't have to spend all that mental energy on excuses or blaming people or feeling sorry or whatever it is. It's just like, you can actually offload all of that and just go, this is me and I'm currently in this position and I don't like it. Okay, what are we going to do? Like, who cares why? Oh, I did this and I've ate that and I've never done what? Who cares? Doesn't matter. Where are you now? I'm here. Okay, where do you want to go? I want to go over there. Okay, well, let's just start moving forward and do some of that stuff and just put some of that baggage over here. You're going to have to deal with some of it as we move forward, but just release a lot of that mental anguish and energy and emotional time you spend just banging around the excuses and just go, I just want to move forward. Okay, well, let's do that, So I think, yeah, that baggage can weigh you down.
Yeah. I mean, one thing, this is totally random, it just hits my head right now, is like when we went to that Manitou Springs, like, talk about accountability there in Colorado. We did the Manitou incline, the post that I tagged you in.
Yeah, I saw that, man.
We hiked up that. My wife hiked it with the baby on her chest the whole way. I had the diaper bag, but we started, it was real cold and we started with jackets and then like those just came off. Like we're sweating just walking. And the whole time I'm walking up, I thought, man, this whole time I thought, I could probably finish one of those races that Paul did. I don't think that I could win, but I could probably finish it. And then like halfway up, my wife goes, this thing's not even a mile long. And I was like, that's not a mile? No, it's like 9/10 of a mile. It's like, whoa, there's no way. Wow, that's like incredible. Like it really was like an eye opener to me. Like, dude, I can see where I'm lacking in. Like, I mean, I was getting a little cocky thinking that I was in shape, and then I see that and I go, that's why he does all those thousands and thousands of box steps with a weight vest on
all the time. Look, it's really interesting you say that. Like, some of the best advice about climbing big mountains. One of the guides one year, he said, look, if you're at base camp and you look at the summit and you go, oh my God, there is no way I get to the top of that thing. It's enormous. Like, how am I going to do that? I can't do that. He said, you're done. You won't do it. I guarantee it. But he said, if you just go, my only job is to get to the next break or then to, next camp or finish the day, whatever it is. And typically on a big mountain, we would, climb for an hour, 5-minute break, climb for an hour, 5-minute break. And he would say, just do the hour. That's all you have to do. And he said, all the mountain will take care of itself. And now I've listened to that advice and I've ignored that advice. And the time I ignored it, I failed. I turned around and just the wheels fell off and I went to hell in a handbasket. And the time I listened to it on the same mountain, I summited. So it's like, it works, like test and measure, it works. It's just a case of don't look at the summit and go, I can't get up there. I can't do that. Okay, what can you do? Can you do an hour? Yeah, I can do an hour. And just do the hour. And then we'll just do another hour. And all the stuff will take care of itself. So it's like, it really is, the adage of, break it down into parts and all that kind of stuff. It's just true. Just chop it down into a bit you can deal with and then deal with that. And then we'll just go from there.
Yeah, I mean, do you still have the summit in mind when you're thinking of that? You're just going, I just want to make it to here, rest a little bit, and then when I'm ready, go again and go again. Like I'm putting it in place of like goals, and because it's kind of an everyday metaphor, really. Like when you're climbing that mountain, it really like what you just said is kind of an everyday thing. You don't just start and then all of a sudden have a 6-pack or whatever it is. I mean, like it takes a long time and a lot of reps to get there. And you took a lot of reps in the other direction to get where you are. It takes a lot of reps in the other way to change it. And so setting those little goals is important. I have a really bad problem of I want to be good now. And if I have any sort of success, I'm like, I'm like, okay, I should be even better, and then I fall down. I'm like, oh, that's humbling. That's that humble thing that's like kicking me and saying, you're not that good yet. You need to recognize that. And, then I switch gears and keep going. So it's a really difficult thing for me to like set little bitty goals as I go along because I want to see it now.
Yeah. I think it's kind of where it's a good thing to have in your toolkit. So yes, you have the big goal in mind. I want to get to the summit. I want to finish the race. I want a promotion, earn this, do that, whatever it is. But have that ability to break it into parts is really crucial when the wheels fall off and it all goes to hell in a handbasket. So the times that I've found that skill of going, dude, we're just going to survive this bit is when it's really, the wheels are really fallen off. Like in the 6633, there was a section, second last night, like it was so cold and so like I was so exhausted. I just went, okay, I'm going to set it for 15 minutes. And my sole goal is to stay upright and walking and move for 15 minutes and not just completely fall apart. And I just literally broke the whole night into 15-minute lots. I didn't care about anything beyond that 15-minute block because things were really hard. And then, you get the next morning, the sun comes up and okay, we can extend a little longer now and kind of move forward and see the big picture again. So I think sometimes it's good to go have the big goal and the dream. That's cool. But it's important to have that skill in the toolkit to go, at some point, the wheels are going to fall off for a little while and things are going to be a bit wobbly. Be comfortable to go back into the little chip. Okay, bigger steps and away we go again. You got through the muck. Now we can kind of move forward again. So you've got to be happy to do both.
And then recognizing when the wheels fall off as well. Like you
Mm.
recognize like, okay, this is part of the suck. Like this is it.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
prepared for this. Like I mean, I use visualization a lot. I like
Mm.
obviously it doesn't always work because I visualize myself finishing one of your races or climbing one of your mountains, you know. But um like visualization and putting myself in that position, like recognizing when things are going to go bad, like if they go
Mm.
bad, what it feels like, and then just say, okay, you're not dying, you're good.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
keep pushing forward. It'll
I
be
think there's
over
a
soon
big,
enough.
yeah, there's a big difference in visualizing, and this is where it can go right and go wrong. I think it's very dangerous to visualize the task being easy and you being a superhero and it all happening versus visualizing the reality of how hard it will be and you overcoming that hardship. That's really different. And I always try and focus on I want to visualize myself triumphing over the hardship, like it's really hard and I am struggling, but I get it done, versus it was really hard and I'm a superhero and I just waltz through it. Because then when you don't and it's really hard and you're like, I thought I'd be, amazing and I'm not, that's when it gets mentally a bit wobbly, versus going, I knew it would be hard and I knew I would hate it and hate myself for being here. That's okay. We're mentally prepared for this. We've seen this movie and now we overcome and we move forward. So visualization is great, but I think you've got to be proactive and sensible about what you're visualizing and how you see it playing out.
I think the value of you, like you've experienced that though, you know that feeling of visualizing the great and then it falling apart. I think
Yeah.
that is what sets you apart from just being able to like when people hire you to speak, it sets you apart a little bit from some of these people who, well, a lot actually, that haven't really gone through any failure or struggle like that.
Yeah.
That feeling is deflating. Like it's crazy. And on your like on your level, like where you were at, I should say, in that race, it's even more so because like you've trained all year, you get one shot, and here's this race, and then you don't make
It
it.
blows up. Yeah. And that's, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like my favorite thing is like you get on Instagram and you find the 25-year-old life coach and you're like, oh, come on, man. I don't think you've had the experience of doing that. I don't think you're qualified. But it's that thing of going, you have to take the hits, like you have to have the failures to be genuine, to come out and go, here's my thoughts on it and here's my experience. And you're right. I think people who have taken the hits, like they put themselves out there and it just didn't work, have greater authenticity. Like I've been very successful in business and I've had epic fails in business. I've made a lot of money and I've lost a lot of money. It's like, and that gives you a perspective to come back and go, okay, I can be realistic about this rather than, getting out there and going, I did it and you can too. And here are the 5 steps. It's like, no, that's not how it works. There's no one size fits all 5-step guru plan to success. If there was, the first guy that figured it out would do all the speeches and the rest of us would stay home. It's like, there's no one size fits all, but you've got to go out, take a few hits, fail a few times. That makes you normal. Come out and then share your experiences and people can go, oh, okay, I'm going to go out and try something I want to do. And I'm going to fall flat on my face. That's okay. And then I'm going to get up and keep going or change path or whatever. It just allows people to be realistic than selling them the rah-rah and the posters and the balloons coming from the ceiling and stuff. It's like, it's just not how it's going to work. So I think that realism comes from, you got to take the hits and be prepared to get knocked down a few times, which I've done.
Did your businesses fail while you had the family, like while you already had your family too, like your kids and your wife and everything? Like, did the businesses you lose, did you have a family at that time as well?
Yeah, a bit of both. Like I've had successful retail businesses and other retail businesses where I've just started and then closed the doors and gone, that idea did not work, or it didn't pan out the way I thought it would. Same in property development. Like I've had developments where I've gone, we made money, yay, we broke even, we didn't break even. Like just a mix of all those things. So, and you've kind of got to take. I mean, I'm fortunate in that I have quite a diverse kind of set of business stuff that I'm involved in. So kind of a diversified approach to things, which means you can afford to go, you have a few winners and a few losers and some in the middle, and you can kind of work your way through that. And thankfully the winners have been better than the losers. But I do think your risk profile changes as you get older and you've got partner and kids and those kind of things. You kind of got to be a little bit more conscious of. You're playing with chips that aren't all yours anymore. Like when you're a single guy, like mountain climbing, you're a single guy, you push the envelope, you got no worries with that. But when there are other people involved and they might be relying on you, it's like, well, you may have to temper your own personal ambitions for a few things because you have responsibilities. People are relying on you to come home or pay the bills or put money in the bank account, food on the table and that kind of stuff. So it changes as you go.
Yeah, I was curious because losing a business at any time it's easy for people to look back and that have never actually, because I've been a part of a super successful business and then losing one due to like things out of our control.
Yep.
And it's a gut punch. I mean, it doesn't matter how big or small or whatever that business is. You feel like there's something personal. Somebody attacked you.
Yep. Yeah. Every negative piece of feedback is like a personal attack and like, an epic failure and those kind of things. And that's because you care. That's the flip side is going, yes, it feels bad, but it feels bad because you give a shit. And that's a good thing. So it doesn't make it any easier pill to swallow, but I look back and go, well, you were passionate about it and you cared about it. And in the businesses that have been successful for me, that passion and caring about it, I think has always been the driver anyway, because if you have employees, they know that. And that then inspires them, and then you have a greater chance of success. And when it's a one-man band, it's a little different, but I think it's important to reflect on the reasons why you felt the way you did, because some of those reasons are really good. It just means that maybe it hurt because you're a nice human being. That's a good thing,
I'm glad you said that because it's one thing that like I think it gets overlooked a lot is that it's really because you cared. Like you rolled the dice, you took this chance, you hired these people, you did all this stuff, and you really cared about the people you hired because obviously you care about this business and you care about everything else like growing and you want everybody to have jobs and support them. And then when it falls apart, you feel responsible for that because like this was your idea. And then you feel even worse because you cared so much. Like, and so it's actually, it's what drives you being an entrepreneur in the first place or whatever it is, or whatever task you want to get through. It's what drives that. And then the failure of it, that's why it hurts so much is because that's why it's important to recognize that. I always tell the kids and I do myself, like I went to the skate park yesterday and I took a pretty gnarly slam and I made sure I got right back up, went over there and did it at least one more, like I got to do it again. Yeah. Because I'm not going to let the fear of that stay in my mind. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not going to sit on it and that's my rule. Like I can't, as long as I can physically get up and go, I got to physically get up and go. And I tell the kids all the time, they fall. I go, you have to get up and at least roll down it. Yeah. Because you're not going to let this little thing be a fear for your whole life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You realize that. And I think as a parent, you realize that like, I watch my kids at the playground and stuff, and you're like, my kids are fearless. And you're like, Noah, our youngest, just has zero fear of anything. Everything must be done at, Mach 5 speed. And as a parent, you're like, don't go on that slide, you're going to die. And you're like, he's just hurling himself down there. And you realize that they go out and they live it and they're fine. You got to give them some room. You're like, as a kid, you would have done that like, on fire with like ninjas chasing you and had no concerns at all. But as a parent, you're like, oh my God, what are you doing? So I think it's that thing of you need to allow a little bit of risk and let them have a few stacks and it's not too bad. And then get them up, dust them off. And that mentality serves them well to go, it doesn't always work out the way you want. That's okay. Let's go back and do it again, and maybe make some adjustments. So, yeah, parenting is an epic learning environment, isn't it?
It is. It is. There's so many. I figured it out that the reason I got because I live life. I push limits a little bit. I'm not the craziest dude out there or whatever, but I like to live like a little bit. Oh, that's fun because I get a little adrenaline rush. Yeah. That's awesome. I like that, but I'm in control of me at that situation. And I love my kids. And then to watch them, I'm not in control of their movements. And so I can sometimes see it ahead of time, what's going to happen, or I worry what could happen. if they don't, like if they're not on, I'm like, but I want to go grab the bars for them because I know I'll make it, but
Yeah.
I'm not
You
sure
know,
about
that's not
them.
the right
I'm
thing
not
to
sure.
do.
And then they make it. I'm like, oh, the
Yeah.
relief, because I'm
Yeah.
not in control. I'm not in control of that situation. I'm not in
No.
control of them. They're on their own. I have to step back and go, I've got to have faith and confidence in your ability right now. And I have no control over
None.
it whatsoever.
And you got to let them do it. You
None.
got to give them the room to go for it. It's terrifying, but you're like, I know if I do all of it for you, I'm not helping you. I'm actually doing the opposite. I've got to let you go for it because that's the only way you're going to develop and grow. And I've got to stand back and let it happen because it's the right thing to do.
Well, that's a great lesson. I mean, I feel like I'm sure you're sort of, I don't know if you're in touch with all this stuff. I got a Twitter account to promote the podcast and all this stuff. And it's it's a dumpster fire. When they say that, that's the only way of describing it. I mean, I'm like, there's human beings in the world. It seems so soft when it comes to the way people react about anything that anybody says or does, or you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't. My wife just read something that those little bouncy things that you hang on the door, your kids can bounce up and down in. They said, they said, well, those are actually bad because they're on their toes, and it teaches them to be on their toes the rest of their life. I'm like, she goes, can kids just not have fun anymore? Like, can they not just do the activities and have fun? Yeah. So it's
canceled.
Yeah. And it's so important. And I watch other parents, and even though it's tough for me on the inside, I force myself I let them do things on their own. You have to let them learn lessons on that. Otherwise they won't know how to function in society. And they'll be like these Twitter people that get on there and scream and yell at somebody, call them a name or something,
Oh, social media is a dumpster fire. It's funny. Like, I'm on Twitter. I've had a Twitter account for maybe a decade, and I've posted one thing. Like 9 years ago, I posted something, but I'm actually on it a fair bit because I use it as, it's almost like a window. Like I follow a bunch of people for different reasons, and I follow a bunch of investors and just some thought leaders and a few people that I find really fascinating. I follow a few people that, as you described, are just like complete dumpster fires. Like, they're just like, you people are mad, but I need to know what the mad people are thinking because it's sometimes really interesting. So you're like, some accounts I follow just to go, I just want to see what the far out there thought patterns are in a few places, and what are the conspiracy theorists coming up with this week. And I'm on there because I watch, and it's fascinating. I find it really, really, really interesting.
Well, I do as well. I find it like I get a fair amount of my news from bouncing between all sorts of different people. But I quickly realized that sometimes I'm telling a joke or I'm laughing behind the keyboard, and these other people aren't laughing behind the keyboard. I'm like, that I don't know where a sense of humor went, but or you're also just reading a text and you're reading it however you want to read it. At that time, like, you're reading the context however in whatever tone, and I'm like, I could get in some serious trouble being a really big troll on this thing if I stay too engaged. I need to cut this off now because I'm going to get a little bit too silly, and make some people mad, and I'm going to feel bad because, like, it wasn't my intention. It was just funny.
Yeah, what I found interesting though this year is I've purposely followed on different platforms people that I vehemently disagree with, and not to comment. Like, I don't comment. Like, I go there to get a completely different point of view because I'm not always right, and I'm not saying they are, but I think it's important to go, okay, I have a deeply held belief about this, that, or the other. What does the other side say, and have a listen. And it doesn't often change my mind, but I think it's good to be challenged to go, well, have you looked at it from this point of view, or have you read this about that, or have you considered this? And you're like, sometimes it's like, yeah, when you say that, I can't argue against that. Like, that's a really logical argument, and I hadn't considered it at all. So I found that to be really helpful, particularly this year, to go, what are the people who I disagree with saying, and why they're saying it? And some of it I follow, and you're like, dude, I followed you for a year and I still think you're an idiot, and I still disagree with everything you say. But others, you're like, okay, I don't agree with a lot of your, political or scientific or whatever it is, but it has been interesting to go, oh, okay, that's a different point of view, and you should consider that because that's how the real world works. So that's been a good experiment for me this year, just to kind of go, argue with me. Let me see what the other side of the coin looks like. Don't assume that I'm right.
It's such a valuable thing to have, to be able to talk with somebody you don't agree with. One of my best friends thinks completely opposite politically than I do, but yet I would go to battle for this guy, right?
Yeah.
Like I would go to battle for him because he's my friend. He's a great guy. Like I know where his intentions are and who he is and all that. And just because I disagree doesn't, it actually makes me better because I listen to his point of view and I can take in where he's coming from and his life and the way he grew up and all these other things that he's seeing in the world, like what he sees of it. And it makes me question and test. It's like science. You got to test it to make sure it's true, right? You got to challenge it. I kind of relate it to everything. Like if you're going to go into anything, you've got to sign up for a competition or go in front of people and test it. Test where you're at. Yeah. You have to test where you're at. Otherwise you'll be stuck in the same spot.
Yeah, I think they call it like the straw man argument versus the steel man argument. Like the straw man argument is easy to pull apart. It's easy to knock it over. Whereas I've seen this process, people say you want a steel man argument where you take your point of view or your argument and then you try and decimate it, like try and annihilate the thing before anyone even looks at it. And then once you've done that and you've stripped away the bits that were wrong or not right, or you've backed up your original thesis or whatever it is, you then present it because now it's a steel man versus a straw man because you've allowed it to be attacked and become robust rather than just throwing it out there and thinking you're right because it's you, of course you're right. It's like, no, get the slings and arrows on it and let's see how well it stands up. And I think that's missing. There seems to be a lot of case of going, you're either this side or you're that side, and there's no central ground. It's like either you're over here or you're over there, and I must yell at you because you're not over here, and that's just the way it is. And I think that's been really painful for a lot of people and for a lot of progress. It's stifled a lot because everyone's just stuck on one side of the fence, yelling at the people on the other side of the fence, when the fence probably doesn't really exist. I think that's been really tricky.
Well, and over here, obviously, if you've followed any sort of politics or any of the things going on it doesn't affect us in Texas really much. I mean, really, if you walk outside your door, it's not like that. It's not like what you're seeing. So you have to take that with like a grain of salt as well. But politically and all the things that have gone on over here is wild because it's exactly like that. It's like you're either this side or you're that. You can't have an opinion over here. If you're for somebody, you're obviously the enemy. Like you're an evil person. And you're like, wait a second. No, I'm not. I'm not. I just happen to disagree with the other guy on a few things that are important to me or something, back and forth. And I don't know, is it the same way over in Australia with those sort of things? Are people getting like as divided as it seems like over here in the United States?
No, like Australians have this kind of, from overseas, people look at Australians often as being very laid back. And the politics, I think, is very similar. It's like we have generally a two-party system. But from my personal perspective, they're just different shades of grey. They're not like one's black and one's white. They're just like, you know what, we could change political parties entirely. Probably wouldn't notice. Probably not a lot would change. They're all just kind of, mellow versions of each other, which I think is also bad sometimes. I think it's good that every now and then someone comes up and says, we're just going to throw the whole thing out and start again. So we do have generally a similar kind of two-party system, maybe three-party system, but it's from my point of view, there's a lot of grey, and that's just about it. Versus from what we see now, of course, from my point of view, I'm seeing it from social media and news reporting, which you got to take all that with a grain of salt. But it does look like you've got very much there's us. And if it's not us, it must be them. And if you're one of those two, you can't be the other ones. You can't meet in the middle. There'll be none of that. But then apparently all the cool people are moving to Texas or Miami, one of the two. So it sounds like you're in the right part of the world anyway.
Yeah, just hopefully they don't make it like you got to remember what made it Texas in the first place. It's the Wild West, I mean, people have this idea of them having like, all of us have guns on our hips and, all the time. Like, well, I mean, a lot of us do. You just don't see them, but, but it's not, it's actually a super diverse area that has an attitude from its founding that it's very much like, hey, we're going to do things the way we want to do them. Like freedom's important to us here in Texas. And as long as, you can do your thing. I'll do my thing. As long as you don't tell me what I can and can't do, then we're going to be fine. Right. All right. Let's go about our way. We'll be friends. I'll be friends with you. Matthew McConaughey actually said it best in one of the podcasts. I've heard him going around right now saying it like, Texas is kind of like Austin in this sense, is that you can have a guy that's a rancher and a cowboy hat sitting here, an attorney, a hipster, a punk rocker, a hip hop artist, and they're all sitting at the same bar, having the same drink, having the same conversation with each other, and they're all friends. Like that's exactly what it is. And so I mean, the reason I haven't moved out is I haven't really been fully committed to going. I haven't found someplace better. Utah's super nice. I like the mountains, but also, that there's ups and downs to that. There's a lot of cold, a lot of snow, but yeah, Texas seems to be the spot. There's a lot of people flooding in because of laws and rules. And it's not so much that it's a lot of it comes from, they make the rules and then they disobey the rules and do whatever they want and don't let the people below them do it. And that's what really ticks them off. That's what sends them over the edge. Yeah. And then they shoot away to someplace like, I just got to go someplace where it's going to be, uniform.
Yeah. I think it's a really good point. I think it might've been Joe Rogan who said when he moved to Texas, like the governor of Texas said, if you're in Texas, you vote like a Texan. Like, and I thought about that for a moment going, well, that's the whole point though. You moved there because it's Texas, didn't you? You moved there because it is the way it is. So if you get all these people who moved there and then want to change it, well, you've lost what you moved there to get in the first place. So why did you do that? Yeah. Like if you love it because of the way it is, don't move there and try and change it. Like move there because it is and be part of that and be part of the culture and the environment and all that kind of stuff. But I just, I thought that like I see people going, oh, all these businesses are going to move to Texas and they're going to change it the way they want it. I'm like, well, yeah, but that'd be stupid because then it's not the place that they move to. It's something different. So it's a good kind of, it was a thought that I hadn't had going, that's true. Maybe, don't screw it up when you get there if you like it in the first place.
In times past, so in America, the way it works in times past, like you see Colorado go more like California because Californians got tired of California stuff and they went to Colorado, and not just from there, but places like that. And then they go there and they're like, I'm going to come here because it's better. And then they change it slowly over time because, that's just the way the people they voted in, the way they believe, the whole thing just moves over. That's just human nature as to who you are. But this is different just because they're so angry and they visually see it and they also feel why they're moving. Like there's a clear-cut reason they didn't want to leave. They didn't want to leave California. They're leaving because somebody has done something so egregious to them that they're like, okay, we have to go. So this place is better because they do it different. Yeah. So it's different that way. That's one of those things out of my control. I can't control what, people coming in and changing stuff or whatever. I have to just keep trucking along.
Yelling at people. That's why you're not on Twitter yelling at people, because you look at it and go, but there's some stuff you can control. And like you can control what you can. And then the other stuff, you're like, I can't do much about that shit. So I'm going to not get loaded up on emotional energy and that kind of stuff because I can't actually do anything about it. So I'm going to go out and spend time with the kids and focus on what I can do and work on my things. And it is, you look on the social medias and you see people who must just put 90% of their day just into yelling at other people. You're like, you're making no difference at all. Like, what are you doing? Like, get out and go enjoy life and do some stuff versus just screaming to people all day, control what you can and don't worry about the other stuff.
What's wild about that is that people can go to your page and there's no way they can go to your page and look at your stuff every single day on social media and not eventually over time be like, yeah, I'm a little bit inspired today. Or like, I'm happy because I see that like nothing of yours is like, it's not political. It's not this, it's not that. It's like all just straight inspirational stuff. They can look, but for some reason, people seem to be drawn to this negative bias. I think I asked Justin Sue this, like, why are people drawn to it? It's a big question. Like, why is it so easy to go like, I know this guy's going to make my day terrible. And yet I'm still going to go look at his page.
That's a really good question. It's like, I get why people put out the content that they know will be controversial is not the right word, because some people are putting out there just to tick people off. Like, it's just, the social media, the loudest voice gets the most attention, sadly. So you put out stuff that is controversial because you get the coverage. Why do people go there? Maybe they need the drama. Maybe they need the content to say, hey, look, I've got really nothing else going on that I feel, important about or enthused about. So I need to go here so that I have a cause or something that I need to be passionate about, or I need an opinion and a point of view so that I can show other people that I have an opinion and a point of view. Versus, a lot of us who go, I've got my point of view, and if you don't like it, that's okay. If you do, that's okay. If you don't even know who I am or don't give a stuff about my point of view, also okay. I think some people just need that validation of going, I want other people to know that I've got something to say. You don't always have to have something to say, and you don't always have to yell at people if you do have something to say. People are complex, man. Like, I don't know. I don't know. And like, I don't post up controversial stuff because for me, it's like, as you said, I've got friends who have very different, religious or political or scientific point of views to me. Doesn't mean they're right or wrong or whatever. They've just got different views, and that's fine. And I don't need to go around telling people what they should be thinking or not. It's just a case of going, here's some what I kind of think of as generalist, humanist kind of stuff, and you can get some value out of this, regardless of your background or your belief system or your politics or whatever, because that's all going to change anyway. So let's just go with some stuff that we know is of value to as many people as humanly possible. And that's a kind of approach to take. This is interesting. Let's talk about this. That's interesting. Let's talk about that. That's of value. Let's talk about that. Versus trying to convince you to do something that you're just not going to do, or change a belief system that you're not going to do that. Let people do their thing.
It's an interesting approach that you said that. I think you made that comment to me one time on social media that it doesn't look like you just post just to post. And because everything that if I can't do something genuine, I'm like, ugh, it almost makes it like it would disgust me. And if I'm sure I've done it a couple of times, and that's why I have this feeling where I go, man, it just needs to be authentic me. If I have the idea and it feels right, just post it. And if it doesn't work out, then I can be okay with it. But when like you listen to Gary Vee and he makes valid points and like just post, all day long, put something out, put content out, have something made, and it works for your business. And I'm trying to build something. So I'm like, what do I do? And then I took a step back and I go, I'm going to apply the fundamentals of what he said, but I still got to be me. Like I can look at that and go, if it's not genuine, just don't do it, because that's not what I want to convey out in the world.
Yeah. And two things. One, people will smell that a mile away. Like if they know it's just not genuine content, particularly when your content has been so genuine and real for so long, as soon as you start to change and you just post and stuff up, people see it a mile away. They know that. And it also resonates with, who do you want following? Like, who do you want to be involved? Who are your customers? Who do you want them to be? So if you're going, I'm only going to post up when I've got something valuable to say, then the people who are going to follow you and interact with you value what you say because it is valuable. And look, Gary Vee says the same thing. It's about depth, not breadth. It's like you can have 1 million followers, but if they're all people who don't give a crap, what's the point? Versus having 1,000 who deeply care about your brand or your business or whatever it is that you're about. That is far more valuable. So I think, yeah, I get it. You've got to be out there because the algorithms need you to be out there all the time. But in reality, there are plenty of people that I follow. I'm going, you hardly ever post. But if you do, I stop and I read every word of it, or I watch the whole thing, or whatever it is, because I know when you put it up, it's not BS. It's valuable stuff, and you had a reason for putting it up. So it is. And I've had the same thing going through. Like, I was posting my thing daily because I felt that I should do that. And then when I ran out of valuable things to say at a period of time because I was too busy, I'm like, I'm not just going to put up crap. And for a while there, I'm like, I should be putting stuff up. Like, I'm going to be disappearing down the algorithm hole and no one's ever going to see my stuff again. But I'm like, so what? Like a week of putting up something that's really valuable for people, and they've been looking out for it, and that's fine. So that's that social thing of just being true to yourself, and you will end up with those customers that you actually want versus people who end up just being a pain in your butt.
Yes. And and the difficult part for me is going like, okay, I want all the business, and obviously I want all the business now. I told you that earlier. Like I want everything
All the
now.
business.
I want to, I can take care of everybody. I promise. But then the trying to draw people in, like, okay, I think I have something valuable, trying to get it. Understanding that it's a slow process, like everything else, is tough when it involves money.
Yeah.
Like your investments, and you've owned the businesses before. And so that's, I guess, what I was going to ask you is, did your successful businesses gain ground immediately and never stop, or was it like a slow buildup, or have you had a mixture of them, or what have you found in that sort of area?
Yeah, I've had a mixture. And I think it's kind of, and I talk about people saying, look, particularly with social media again, it's really dangerous to look at someone's finished product and compare that to where you are, because you don't realize the whole backstory of what it took to get that really nice photo. And people say to me, oh, look, you're in a good spot, man. Like, you've got some different income streams. So, like over 2020, some of our businesses took a hit, but I had others that were okay. So we could balance that out. And like, oh, that's fine for you, man. But for me, looking back, like, I had a decade in my life. So from pretty much kind of mid-20s to mid-30s, 10 years, I worked like an insane person, like just 7 days. I had years where I did not take a single day off, like 365, and a short day was 12 hours. And it cost me friends. I didn't have a lot of social life. It cost me quite a lot on that side of the ledger, but I did it. And I don't regret it. I made the choices that I made, and those 10 years set me up for decades after. But it came at a cost. But you don't see that, because I'm not posting up during those 10 years going, look at me doing the work and doing this and doing that. No, I just had my head down and my bum up, and I worked. So it's dangerous for people to look at that and go, oh, you're in a good spot. Well, yeah, I am in a good spot, but I sacrificed a lot and spent a lot of time doing the grind to allow me to do those kind of things. So, you've got to understand people's backstory and what they did before you look at their finished product and go, well, why don't I like that? Well, maybe there was some ups and downs that you didn't see behind that before you got there. So I've had businesses where it's been not a slow grind, like it still grew really quickly, but you had to kind of torch yourself to get the work done to get it where it was, and put in the effort. And I've had businesses that have gone like that and then like that. So I've kind of had a mixed bag of all that kind of stuff. I think the key amongst all that has been managing your risk. And it's like mountain climbing, like you have to be prepared to manage risk, and understand how much could go wrong here, and what the risk or reward profile of these kind of things are. If you're betting the house on this whole thing and it goes wrong, what does that mean for you and for other people, versus going, hey, I'm prepared to put this in and hope to get to here. And if that doesn't work, we're still okay and everything's all right. So you really need to kind of have an understanding of your tolerance for risk going into business, and what you're going to do and how much you have available, and what it means if it does work, what does it mean if it doesn't work, and kind of how those things work. And I've found that really interesting, looking and learning from different industries about how people manage that in terms of, the upside versus the downside, and being aware of that.
It's wild what you just said. Something clicked in my brain, because I talked to, a lot of times successful people they pour 100% of themselves into this one thing, and there's nothing to fall back on. Like Travis Barker's book, some people may like it, not like it, the drummer for Blink-182. I enjoyed looking at his story and the way it was written, because he would get tattoos because he's like, hey man, if I get tattoos, I can't get some other jobs. I've got to stick with this. Obviously you like tattoos as well, but I'm looking at that mental thing. I'm going, dude, I mean, it seems like a lot of people that are fully committed. When you go in 100%, that's how you get successful at what you want to do. Whether you take your lumps and bruises and whatever, when you give it all like 100%, you're going to succeed. But something just clicked with your risk management thing. And you're talking about how much you worked and to set yourself up here, is you can take a smaller risk and still give it 100% of your effort into that thing, and give it everything you got without risking losing things. And I think that needs to be explained for people later on in life. Like you were talking about, like, myself with, I've got a family and it's growing crazy fast. It seems like right now we've got to buy a van because we can't take everybody into one car. And then, and you're those people are relying on you, that they're relying on both people, like the parents, and you've got all sorts of things you got to do. And then you've got this thing tugging at you that says, I want to do something, like I want to start my own business, or I want to venture out and do this job that I've always dreamt about doing, but the pay's not the same, or whatever the case may be in a certain time frame. I'm like, you can actually give something. You just said it. I don't know why it clicked the way you said it, but you can give something that's lower risk 100% of your effort and make that successful the same way as you can when you go all in.
Yeah, I kind of look at effort as leverage. It's like that's how you leverage the product of your time, by putting that effort in. I think the danger is, like, you see all the success stories of, so-and-so did this and all of a sudden became a massive business and they made millions and all that kind of stuff. But you forget, for every one of those, there's like 1,000 grinders out there who are just putting in the hard yards. And they didn't have an overnight success. They just ground it out for years and then ended up in a place where they're really, really happy. And that's like, and again, going back to Gary Vee, like he said, he knows friends who are making millions and millions and millions and they're miserable. And he's got friends who are making, whatever they're making, 50, 60 grand a year, and they're stoked because their lives are awesome. So it's a case of going, you've really got to find that place of going, just because someone else is grinding it out and working 15 hours a day and making the monies, that may not be you. Like, I talk a lot about the fact that I'm a stay-at-home dad for a lot of my time these days, 2 young boys, and it's a very much unpaid gig. You don't get an award, there's no title, you don't get a business card, but I love it. I get a lot of value out of that, and you earn no money doing it. But for me, it's really, really important. And I look at those boys and their upbringing is like, that is my job. Like, I have to get that right. So I put a lot of time and effort into it because that is the most important thing I'm doing at the moment. And the business stuff I enjoy, but that is the thing that's really valuable to me. So I value myself based on that versus what my business card says, or how much money you shoved in the bank this year, or whatever it is. It's like, if the business thing is you, cool. But if the family thing is you, awesome. If you can earn less and be happier, then do it. Just don't get stuck into going, I've got to be successful, and success is a dollar sign or the car or whatever it is. Like, I think of 2 guys I went to school with who were very, very intelligent. They've both ended up in vastly different careers. And I wonder, I believe that the guy who's making a lot less money is a lot happier than the guy who's making a lot of money. And I look at it going, that's it. Like, you got to find your point where you go, this is where I find value in my life. Do that and get stuck into it. And who gives a crap if it doesn't have a massive dollar sign, you don't have the house and the car? If you're able to pay your bills and do your thing and live the way you want to live, do it.
You're saying something. We go on these walks. We take the dogs on a walk. We walk. We started doing a lot more whenever the pandemic first hit and everything was crazy. We started taking a lot of walks outside, and it gives us like our best talks. Like, me and my wife's best talks is when we go out and we walk. Like, hiking, we love to hike, and it's somewhat for the hike. The hiking's beautiful, but a lot of times we come up with our best ideas and thoughts and everything while we're hiking or walking. So we were walking the other day, just talking about life and, where we're going and this and that. And I was talking about how we brought up something where I was like, my life, things started to change for me when I stopped looking at what would bring the most money and going that route, and looking for those opportunities versus looking for the opportunities of something that would make me happy, that would also bring in enough where I could survive. I'm going to focus on finding the things that light a fire inside of me and looking for those opportunities versus looking for the opportunities just for dollar signs.
Yeah.
And things just automatically started, like, it didn't happen overnight, but my mindset changed and things started, like, I feel like I'm on the right track. I feel like I've built up momentum.
Yeah.
It like keeps building, steam, and that it'd be really hard to knock me off that, just because it's like, oh, my mindset, I figured it out. Like, oh, look how happy I am. Like, I'm happier. And these little things that are coming by and coming at me, and little opportunities now are popping up, and I'm going, ooh, that looks fun. That looks fun. And like you said, risk management and all that, but it's more of looking at what would be fun versus what it pays.
Yeah. And your whole mindset shifts, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, all of a sudden you're a better partner, and all of a sudden you're a better parent, and all of a sudden you find I'm just in a better headspace. And so all those facets of your life start to change versus I'm just the name on my business card. Like all those aspects of your life start to get a lot better. And then opportunities do come up. And because you're in a better headspace, maybe you can take, you've built yourself some capacity and some room to take advantage of those things when they come up, but you've given yourself that opportunity to do that. And that's crucial. It's just good. It's leveraging.
Yeah. And there's so much waste. Yeah. And there's so much waste I got out of my life whenever I started thinking about that too. It's kind of weird. Like so many wasteful things that put me in better positions to look at opportunities, not just financially, but all over. And like when you saying better partner, better father, better everything, it improves everything. Not that you may not be bad, but you'll just see it go, you'll see it go up and build that positive momentum. And that's that's hard to stop. Once you get it rolling, it's hard to stop it. Like you said, you worked how many years, like every day of the year, 12-hour days. And then you built up this momentum. So now that you've got these businesses, you're diverse. If something doesn't, if something fails, you've got so much positive momentum that it's going to carry you through that time frame. Yeah, and I mean, you earned it. Yeah. My favorite thing about what you say is do the work.
It is. It's do the work. But sometimes it's unpaid work. Do the work isn't always about make the money. It's do the work. And sometimes the do the work is do the work on this, like do the work on how am I feeling, where's my headspace, how am I emotionally, am I supportive, am I part of my family, all that kind of stuff, am I physically in shape, all those kind of things. Like the work isn't about what's on your business card. And I think that the trick is you get, and I've fallen into this trap myself, like we allow society to value us based on our job, because that tells us how much you earn, and how much you earn tells me how valuable you are. And for a time when I didn't have a set career, it was really weird for me because people are like, what do you do? I'm like, I don't have a good answer. Whereas now I'm like, they ask me, I'm like, I don't really care what you think, but I do a whole bunch of stuff. And my name is stay-at-home dad. And you see people they can't evaluate where you fit in the hierarchy because so if I say I'm a doctor, they just can pinpoint you and put you somewhere. If you say you're a pharmacist, they pinpoint and put you somewhere. You say you're a stay-at-home dad, you're like, I don't know where you fit in. Like, how does that work? I'm like, it works for me and I love it. So I don't really care. So it's really, I think that doing the work thing is about doing what needs to be done, regardless of whether other people think it's important or it has a value or whatever it is. It's about, what do you need to do? I need to work on this. Go work on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's well said. Well said. I mean, your stay-at-home dad thing, we touched on that last on the podcast, which was, it's an interesting thing because it's outside of society's norms, but it's also like, if anybody's ever had kids or like truly spent time with their kids, then they understand like what it takes, like that effort. I've never, ever, I have the utmost respect for all stay-at-home moms. I'll have the utmost respect for all stay-at-home dads because it's a job that never ends. You say 12 hours, you get what, maybe an hour or two break sometimes.
That's it.
It's all the time. It's all the time,
Yeah, my wife and I talked about this the other night. I mean, if you're a single working parent, a single working mum or a single working dad, you are like a superhero to me. Like, I don't know how you do it. Like, seriously, like you see a lot of these stories of single mums and single dads who are working full time and taking care of the kids. I'm like, man, you are like another level of human to me. I don't know how people do that. It's just incomprehensible how tough that must be, but they do it. So it's like, and yet society doesn't have a job title for that. And yet I'm like, these people are amazing. Like, you got to have some respect for that. That's right.
Yeah. And I mean, and it also, once you've gone through something like that, you understand, like people will look at you and go, like I've had people, even one of my brothers tell me, I don't know how you fit all this in. I'm like, I mean, once you're in it, it's kind of like, I don't know if you ever saw, I don't know if they showed the commercials over there, how big baseball is over there, but they have King Griffey Jr. There's a Pepsi commercial where the pitcher throws the ball and he throws in the high 90s, right? But it shows how slow it looks to King Griffey Jr. Yeah. He's having this whole conversation in his head and he's talking the ball. He can see like the ball moving real slow,
Mm,
and then it speeds up right as it gets to his bat. When he hits it, he hits a home run, right?
mm.
It's just like when you see things going at 100 miles an hour, all of a sudden that 100 miles an hour doesn't seem so fast.
No. It's like that adage of if you want something done,
You
give
figure
it to
out.
a busy person, And I often joke going with my wife going, when we didn't have kids, like before we had kids, do we spend 20 hours a day doing nothing? Because we must have had so much spare time. Because now, man, we are busy. But you do, it's got to get done. So you just do it. So yeah, it's that, give it to a busy person, man, or a parent. No, that stuff will get done.
So it's so true. So even back in your younger life, like you look back and look at the same way I do, where I go, dude, how much time did I actually waste? I thought I was busy. had no clue what I could fit in a day.
How busy was, no. But interesting though, going back a point with the parenting, I think and I hope that this year has allowed a lot of people to redefine their relationships at home, particularly with their kids. I've spoken to a couple of my mates who are dads, and they've gone, it's really changed because I've spent a lot of time at home with my kids all of a sudden. It's really changed their relationship with their kids and their understanding of, if they had a stay-at-home partner, of what that actually meant to that person, what they do. So I hope that this year gives people some opportunity to go, okay, aside from all the horrors of lockdown and business and that kind of stuff, what did you get? Well, I was home with my family a lot more, and I had that time to kind of reevaluate those relationships and those times and what that actually means and what happens when I'm normally at work and not home, what goes on. So, hopefully there's some value in that, and that carries over for some people moving forward about, okay, when life gets back to normal and I'm back to work again, do I want to go back to the way I was? Or no, I want to change a few things because I learned a few things about me and my place in my family and my kids, my wife, my partner, and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully.
I hope it does too, man. I hope it changed the mindset of business owners and people who employ people, where they'll be a little bit more lenient and put less pressure on people. And then I hope it changes other people's perspective. I would like to think it has, but then it's like every tragic event. Like when something happens, it happens in a short period of time, then they forget it, And for some reason, and I don't know why this is, it just growing up with grandparents that lived through the Great Depression here in the States, like that time frame where my grandma got an orange for Christmas and she was stoked, like that's the sort of thing. And when you see her physically cut off mold of bacon and cook it and say it's still good, and just the mindset that they have, even though they were wealthy, they still had this thing. Like, we watched it all go away. Why would we take this for granted at any moment in time? It almost ingrained in me a certain sort of like respect for all these events that happen, what over here, 9/11 and whatever the event that happened now, 2020. This is not something that I'm going to forget and leave these lessons behind. I want to take these things with me, and hopefully more people look at it and go, yeah, I want to take the lessons I learned, like the things that I like to do, the things that are most valued to me, and pursue that avenue of my life and make that stronger versus going back to the way things were before.
Yeah. And look, that would be my greatest fear, that after all of this, we all go back to business as usual. Like if everything goes back to normal, what a tragic waste. Sometimes a few things have to get broken for us to go, okay, then we can do this a better way or a different way. But that is my great fear, that we get through all of this and we come on the other side and everyone's in a mad rush to go back to the way it was. Aside from the difficulties, you've had an opportunity to see how things could be different. That would be valuable. Don't waste that opportunity, and take some time to think about the stuff that you now value differently and the lessons you learn and what's important to you now versus before. Don't just rush back to getting back to normal, man, because the old normal kind of sucked. I think we can do better. So yeah, that's my fear, that we don't learn en masse. We just rush back to the way it was.
Yeah. Well, Paul, do you have your book coming out? I've kept we're well over now. This is probably the longest podcast I've ever done. I could keep talking to you the whole time. It's so fascinating. I wish we lived in the same area so that we could hang out and we have a beer and just visit about all these different things, because we could solve every problem probably in the world, I think.
We probably could. We literally we could probably solve the loss. It'd take a little while, but we could solve the whole thing. I've actually, I wrote my book, and then it just sat on the thing for ages. And then earlier this year, I was going to get it finished and put it out. But of course, February, March, all of a sudden, every conference and everything was cancelled. So every gig I had for a full year just got wiped out. So I'm like, I'm going to get this book done, and my mum's going to get a copy, and that's about it. But now that the world's opening up again, I've actually finally come back to it. It's written, it's edited. I'm getting it typeset. I'm hoping in like a couple of months it'll be done. And when I'm back out and I can actually, rah and spruik it and do stuff, it'll be out and about. I'll send you a copy. So yeah, and look, as I said, I'm getting back now. I've got a little bit more time. My eldest is starting school next year, so I've got a little bit more time to get back into the writing and the posting and those kind of things, because I'll have time to kind of absorb and actually have something that I feel is valuable to say. So it's kind of good to come out the other side and get back into some of that stuff. Yeah, that's the plan.
That's the plan. What else do you have going on? Anything that you want to share with anybody? Like any sort of...
Oh, no, look, like every event I had for this year was cancelled. Like I was meant to be in the Middle East in December running UTMB Amman in Amman doing that. And that just got completely, like every single event bar one got cancelled this year. So I had one local event that still ran a couple of weekends ago. So that was awesome, just to get out and actually go to an event that had people and stuff, and it was real in a place. That was awesome. So for me next year, look, I've got a bunch of just local runs and stuff kind of booked in. I have been kind of trying to get my PhD off the ground. I've just submitted my application and kind of, pre-thesis kind of thing. So, hey, look, I want to do this. Will you accept me as a student and get into that? Because, more writing, why not? But for me, it's just next year, a busy year with the kids. My wife's taken on a new role as a school principal, so she's flat out is going to need some support from me. So really the next 12 months for me is, keep the training up, get out to as many events as I can, plan maybe some bigger things for down the track, get the book out, get some study done, get some writing done, and just kind of roll it a little bit and see what this year throws up at me. I'm in a good position where if some opportunities come up, we can go with it. And if not, I've got plenty of good stuff going on.
Man, just saying all that stuff, like you definitely did not waste anything in 2020 or any of that lockdown for sure. You got plenty busy outside of just having kids. You got a lot accomplished. It sounds like. It's awesome, man. I dig it. Thanks for being on, Paul.
Oh, pleasure as always, man. Love it. We should catch up again.
Oh, for sure. What is it we said? Every 6 months, even though this was like 9 months, but
that's been that kind of year.
Yeah. All right.